Hello, it's Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm talking about another book from Sweet and Maxwell. It's got a long title. It's this book here. It's Goode on Legal Problems of Credit and Security. It's in its 4th edition, and as you see, it's very much the way Sweet and Maxwell run things. Nice little tables of contents, and a particularly useful thing here is right at the beginning of each chapter you get a little list of what's in it, which is very, very helpful. At the back you've got a list of what's actually contained in the book, and you've also got a very useful index at the back. It's not a particularly heavy book, and it's about 370 pages long, something like that. Now, I've written a review of this book, which is actually on Flickr, and here it is here, and I've given it a title. Obviously the title of the book itself by Professor Goode is a fairly long-winded one, in the sense of covering quite a lot of ground in the title. So I've said that the title is Secure Your Transactions with Good Advice. Now obviously most people will know who Professor Sir Roy Goode is, because he's been well known for and around for a very long time. What we've got here though is a book which is absolutely invaluable in my view for practitioners and learners. Credit and security is a risky area, as we all know, and it means that it's important to make sure that transactions entered into are as secure as possible, and we know that with the internet in particular. So therefore contracts need to be carefully drawn up to protect the parties to the agreement from the risk of financial loss as far as is practicable. Obviously when things go wrong, either litigation or some form of dispute resolution will ensue to minimise any such loss which might have occurred. And this is really where the book comes in, because it deals with problems. The first edition of the book, which is mentioned on the back blurb, contained a revised and expanded series of lectures, first delivered by the celebrated Roy Goode at the Centre for Commercial Law Studies in 1982, so it's a long time ago. And it set out to explore a range of conceptual problems which arose from fixed and floating security. And obviously those of you who've done company law, as we called it, will know exactly what we're talking about here with crystallisation. The resulting expanded work, however, is an analytical account now of the law and regulation of credit and security, and it elucidates a number of complex and technical areas, and you'll all know from your cases how confused some defendants are in this particular area. So since it was first published, the work has become a key text, obviously for students, i.e. learners as we call them, academics and practicing lawyers alike, and it's regularly cited now by the courts and in legal literature, which is of course to be expected from anything which Professor Goode produces. So Goode's latest edition of his work is always actually going to be eagerly anticipated, whether it's this book or a number of other publications, and this edition, the 4th, is no exception. It's been masterfully edited and augmented by Louise Gullifer, and so the 4th edition has actually preserved the framework of the previous editions, and it maintains at the same time its remit as an exploration of the fundamental concepts of common law and equity as they affect typical secured transactions, from things like mortgages to secured loans and complex structured financial products. What we've got here is, I'm going to give you a quote now. Louise has succeeded admirably in preserving all the essential features of the 3rd edition, says Goode, nice of him, while not hesitating to move the discussion on certain issues in a new direction, which is to be welcomed, of course, because of the changes. And he again goes on to say the work has been brought completely up to date and incorporates a number of new ideas, particularly in relation to securities interests in shares. And as I said, that would be particularly interesting for people doing company law. The book takes account of developments in case law and legislation, as well as the latest scholarship and academic debate, and its contents obviously include a lot of what's mentioned on the back, new case law, including Spectrum and the Leyland-Daff decisions, an examination of the fundamental concepts of common law and equity as they impact on typical and various secured transactions, always a difficult problem because of the balance and the discretion, with emphasis on how principles apply in practice. And there's also discussion of the legal implications of changes to the security markets. Obviously it's very topical at the moment. An exploration of the numerous conceptual problems associated with fixed and floating charges, which I alluded to earlier. Coverage of such terms as set-off, netting and abatement, which then starts getting pretty technical. Then you've got things like an explanation of the complex subject of priorities, always important of course in whole aspects of certainly the equitable jurisdiction. An examination of recent national legislative developments, linked of course to international conventions and the European Community Directives, as we still call them, what I'd call now the EU directives, but we've in addition got a number of other things like international developments like the UNIDROIT Convention on substantive rules regarding intermediated securities. So I say that's where it gets very complex. But what I would say in conclusion is that for practitioners and academics alike, the title is indispensable. It's heavily cited in court, as I said, as well as in documents from government and regulatory bodies, and it can certainly lend you the weight of its considerable authority in effecting smooth, secure transactions, as well as resolving arguments and disputes. Therefore, that's why you secure your transactions with such good advice here. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.